In my 15 years on YouTube, I've gotten a lot of requests for videos, but by far, the number one comment I get demands a list of my favorite albums of all time. I'm finally making this a reality, as you're about to see me break down my top 100 favorite albums of all time. One album per artist, all genres welcome. Not here to say that these are the best albums ever, but ones that are priceless to me. So buckle up, we've got a lot of ground to cover, from Weezer and Outkast to Deftones and Fiona Apple. Hey neighbor, welcome back to ARTV. My name is John, and I'm thrilled to be your tour guide through my all-time favorite albums. And before we get started, please take a quick second to like the video, subscribe if you haven't yet, and maybe share this video out with the music community you're in. It's all free, and it helps me out more than you know.
Call for the captain ashore, let me go home, let me go home.
Brian Wilson essentially made his first solo album via Pet Sounds, bringing the band in only once the project was nearing completion to add their golden voices to the mix. While I'm sure that was very confusing at first, this was quickly recognized as a stone-cold psychedelic pop pioneer, filled to the brim with rich harmonies, lush arrangements, and wonderfully out-of-pocket writing. I must have been 8 or 9 when my parents gave me this Beach Boys Greatest Hits collection and a CD player for my birthday, which was a total game changer. Since, yes, I had access to music before, but this was the first one that was ever mine. Songs like Wouldn't It Be Nice had my head spinning with those gorgeous harmonies, leading me to ask my parents for more of their music, which led me to Pet Sounds, which caught my attention because of how trippy it sounded.
Till I'm up on my feet again. Hey, I'm feeling.
No One Sings Like You Anymore became more than just a lyric from Soundgarden's most popular album, Super Unknown. To me, it's the cold hard truth since we lost Chris Cornell in 2017. However, it's the younger sibling album that cemented Cornell's insane range, with their sophomore LP rocketing through iconic songs like Rusty Cage and Holy Water that would collapse the lungs of your average singer. Bad Motorfinger goes for the throat with a pummeling, grungy, alternative metal sound, sidestepping cliches with meaningful writing and a menacing rhythm section. Kim Thayil proved to be just as important as the band carved out their own sonic highway, with his guitar work blazing the trail like a flamethrower.
You stole all day tonight, not patient closing gathered.
Heavy metal received a major jolt with Gojira's inception in the late 90s, as the anything but ordinary French band evolved brilliantly into their 2005 Space and Time concept record From Mars to Sirius. A dead planet triggers a race against the universe on this massive beast, led by frontman Joe Duplantier's decision to add more melodic moments alongside the force of nature brutality commonly associated with his style. It's a snapshot of an exaggerated reality that's really not that far removed from our own. Droning atmospheric pressure fits this hour-long trek like a glove, opening eyes to the atrocities of environmental collapse through an onslaught of sound that somehow finds time to stop and smell the roses in the midst of an apocalyptic doom.
It's 11:59 and I want to stay alive.
Pure bliss bursting at the seams is hard to bottle and sell in musical form, but here comes Blondie with an apple a day to keep the doctor away. Dancing proves to be the best medicine, as Debbie Harry commands this batch of anthemic new wave tunes, backed by sizzling guitars, razor-sharp bass, refreshing keyboards, and some of the most infectious drumming you'll ever hear on a pop rock record. Unrelenting energy is spread evenly across the album's 12 tracks, standing tall decades later as an example of not only killer power pop, but also of what happens when a great producer gets involved and brings out the best in a group of scrappy kids. Bending the unspoken rules of the post-punk revival of the 2000s is what Bloc Party were all about. They successfully flipped the script with a stunning debut album, Silent Alarm, which I've been hooked on for more of my life now that I haven't. Thanks, Burnout Revenge. I say that as if I'm in any way mad. Quite the opposite. Silent Alarm grows more important with age, giving off this ethereal punk quality that consistently challenges your perspective of what the album's best or most important songs are. You could point to singles like like she's hearing voices or banquet or helicopter for the obvious answers, but I encourage you to dive into the deep cuts, as that's where Kayle's tortured voice invites you in for a closer look at his personal demons.
Pretty glass and empty heart, I'm just a mirror.
The Last Dinner Party radiates a rare feeling of self-aware pretentiousness that's neither toxic nor disqualifying, rather a red carpet roll into pure musical ecstasy. Life-affirming is maybe the best way I could sell such a new album as being this deserving. Each member's individual talent is worthy of the spotlight, yet they share it together with a level of grace, wit, and appealing charm that's hard to get right. Abigail Morris enchants as their de facto frontwoman, intertwining haunting vocals with bandmate Lizzie Malin to make this stunning collection of songs that much more alluring and bombastic. In addition to the core band, there's flute, mandolin, glowing strings, among others that are out there standing tall, reaching for the stars, as guitarist Emily Roberts often finds herself as the cornerstone for shredding into the stratosphere. This is probably a musical theater kid's wet dream. I wouldn't know since my school didn't have theater, but hey, if it ain't Baroque, don't stream it! Broken Machine is a juggernaut rock album, flexing the unrelenting fury and versatility of England's very own Nothing But Thieves. From the moment I Was Just a Kid explodes with its loudmouth guitars, you're on the edge of your seat waiting to see what they're gonna trot out next, whether it's the chilling introspection of the title track, I'm Not Made by Design with its rejection of higher power, or the bittersweet penultimate moment, hell yeah. Their sophomore album achieved this style of intense vulnerability by tackling themes of political unrest, identity, and control, all while pushing their sound in an invigorating direction that eclipsed their already great debut album with a variety of electronic, rock, and alternative atmospheres. Electronic music isn't exactly my forte, but I was immediately drawn to the Chemical Brothers. After the Chemical Brothers had their international breakthrough in the late 90s, the duo holed themselves off in the studio for nearly 2 years, making what I controversially think is their best album, Come With Us. Peaceful Unrest is the most succinct way I can put it, as it's primarily instrumental work, although Richard Ashcroft from The Verve is featured on the final track, but it's in no way background fodder, not meant to be the center of your attention. It's almost like they're guiding us on a trek through each of the 4 seasons, with Summer Heat arriving on my favorite track, My Elastic Eye, Pioneer Skies sounding like a race through Antarctica, Come With Us not being out of place on a spooky season playlist, and Denmark, you already know that's an initiation for spring. Dream punk might sound like a genre I made up, but it's not. It's exactly the feeling Turnstile cut up and served on a silver platter with Glow On. Supercharged riffage floats off into the ether. It's like they're turning the intensity knobs up and down as their frontman storms into the heart of the record with effective lyrics that attracted a new type of mindset for the hardcore scene. The creative juices were swirling about with input from every band member, making for this delicious strawberry smoothie in musical form, with each sip getting more refreshing than the last.
We are strong.
Florence has an immaculate track record with albums, but Ceremonial speaks the loudest to me through its brilliant use of Baroque melodrama and a twist on your casual moody pop formula. Autumn Synergy bewitches the soul with some truly epic performances throughout, including those roaring strings accenting some of the album's fiercest moments, Shake It Out, Seven Devils, and the mystifying opener Only a For a Night. If you close your eyes and listen to the record, imagine a gorgeously lit cathedral with a bunch of mysteriously cloaked people and let your mind wander as Florence's towering, unmistakable pipes call to mind other amazing voices like Fiona Apple or Kate Bush.
Wasting away, I see you when the top of the world falls on you.
Welcome to pop punk at its hookiest, most sugary, bittersweet addicting. It's the best All-American Rejects album, Move Along. No skips, persistent guitars, killer energy. It's the band's second album coming in hot with top to bottom bangers featuring catchy-ass writing, colorful choruses, and a shimmering arena-ready production sound from Howard Benson. Basically peak 2005 in one package, with slicker appeal than some would like to give it credit for, with the popular ballads like It Ends Tonight and the anthem Dirty Little Secret being self-explanatory, while the deeper cuts like 11:11 p.m. and Stab My Back work as evidence of how well they rode this coming-of-age groove.
Riding around with the car top down and the radio on.
Instead of letting them collect dust in the garage, I would sometimes go through my parents' old box of records that they never cared to unpack, and this is one of the pulls that ended up sticking around. The Stranger is a ridiculously good display of talent from a young songwriter looking to make a permanent mark on the world. The songs take on lives of their own, with the showstopper scenes from an Italian restaurant brilliantly segueing through perspectives with captivating instrumentation and storytelling. Joel is so great at using his personality and piano to mirror a gauntlet of relatively simple emotions, and wheels in this pop Trojan horse underdog that stood the test of time and then some. Wonky, weird, wild, wonderful, it's all the dubs from Mirrored, which is the primarily instrumental-focused debut album that plays out like a sprinter outrunning a hurricane. Battles started as an experimental unit out to disrupt the blandness that was the music scene in the mid to late 2000s. You might recognize them by their appearance on the original Little Big Planet soundtrack, where a lot of people, including me and my friends, were introduced to the song Atlas. Unlike anything I had ever heard, I was in a trance every time I listened. But it wasn't until college that I finally gave their full album a listen, instantly loving the series of increasingly insane caves that have you second-guessing what's north and what's south at every turn. While it's definitely not listener-friendly right away, give it time and let the ominous drumming, rotating time signatures, and bizarro singing and guitar synth rampages worm their way into your psyche and thank me later. Clashing with the existential dread that comes with growing up is never fun. Unless it's in the hands of pop, in which case you're in for a full-blown meltdown. This Canadian punk band put out a great pair of albums before this, but I really think Morbid Stuff is their unofficial masterpiece. A victory lap for all those years of grinding it out without nearly enough recognition. Pup rarely even slow down to breathe, except Scorpion Hill, I'll give you that one. But they tear through the air at bullet speed, with vicious sarcasm rocking the boat just enough to not let it sink. Gang vocals don't always work for me, but they're in rare form here, elevating the music like a live wire, sending electricity back and forth through hammering drum and bass, raucous riffs, and howling breakdowns that really highlight the dexterity of their frontman Stefan and guitar player Steve in particular. Domineering drum and bass is all you need to get sexy results. Just ask Canadian dance punk duo Death From Above 1979. Their debut sizzles and pops like bacon on a skillet, lashing out with furious bass energy, shouted ragtag vocals, and drums that hit with seismic force. It's hard not to get swept away with the current of noise in this musical typhoon, cracking open the fun and injecting it straight into our veins like an earthquake for the mind. Whether it's the gnarly bass tones or the unassuming hooks that drill themselves secretly into your frontal lobe, consider You're a Woman, I'm a Machine a pain-free lobotomy performed by two dancing doctors.
Thousands and thousand miles per hour. Hello, ghetto, let your brain breathe. Believe there's always more.
I discovered Outkast in a really weird way. When I was a kid, there was this player on a local baseball team that used a couple of their songs as his walk-up music, which apparently set off alarm bells in my head. Their seminal album, Stankonia, is a wild ride, as rap duo Outkast redefined southern hip-hop by fusing funk, psychedelia, and witty political commentary. Big Boy and Andre 3000 are living proof that opposites attract. Mac. They each have unique wordplay and rhyme schemes that do complement each other in a weird contrasty way, with Big Boy's big booming voice sounding like the devil on your shoulder to Andre's seemingly more innocent Angel Man routine. From the frenzied political energy of Bombs Over Baghdad or the sexy lush Velvet Cake to the classic anthem So Fresh and So Clean, Stankonia represents the rare collision of commercial heights with an artist's creative peak. The feel-good hit of the summer will not be found here, because Foxing's Nearer My God feels like standing on the edge of a cliff, staring off into the vast unknown as your worst fears quickly fill the valley below. The album's instrumentals roar like an engine, combining emotionally raw lyrics with an almost desperate longing for something more. Nearer My God never keeps the knife at your throat too long. There are moments of pure existential dread, but they're often followed by sweeping, cathartic releases, so if you are planning to give it a listen, really listen. Passive listening would be like holding onto a toothpick for safety. It's that search for purpose that definitely resonated with me deeply, and okay, maybe it helps that Foxing are experimental emo kings always willing to go there.
'Cause I'll be loving you always.
Not only is this album iconic, it's one that influenced music across multiple genres and helped shape my taste in music. Tracks like Sir Duke and As radiate infectious joy and expert musicianship by balancing Stevie's technical prowess with genuine emotional depth. Listening to this album feels like receiving wisdom from an older generation. It's one of the rare double albums where every track feels like a gift from above, making Songs in the Key of Life a transcendent, spiritual experience. Allow me to introduce you to your favorite band's favorite band, more importantly, your favorite band's point of inspiration, The Shape of Punk to Come. Refused seemingly appeared out of nowhere with this incendiary manifesto of anarchic energy echoing like a constant roar over 12 tracks. The Swedish band pushed the boundaries of punk rock with complex song structures, belligerent vocals sometimes, and blatantly political lyricism, while remaining shockingly catchy with the hooks and riffs alone making this LP shine like a flashlight in a cave. The way Refused blends hardcore with elements of jazz, electronic, and spoken word makes this album feel both timeless and ahead of its time. It's the kind of record that makes you want to change the world while headbanging to its relentless rhythms that are chaotic but methodical. A perfect paradox.
Some ghastly predicament in my own fight.
The kiss of early 2010s bliss lives on via Purity Ring, and their often imitated but never surpassed ethereal weirdo masterpiece shrines. The haunting synthy production by Corin Roddick pairs tragically well with Megan James's delicate vocals, making the gory imagery conjured by songs like Obadiah and Ungirthed feel like stepping into an upside-down dreamscape. The hypnotic beats and cryptic lyrics give the album a uniquely eerie atmosphere, blending dream pop with electronic music in a way that sounds nostalgic and futuristic. Oh, what kind of sorcery is that? The sheer lunacy of Greg Puciato will not be for everyone, I know that. But for those of you into math rock, metalcore, and prog, boy oh boy do I have an experiment for you. Chaotically controlled science is the best way to describe One of Us is the Killer. On this album, the Dillinger Escape Plan balances the track list with their aggressive mathcore sound a la Prancer, which is the sound that initially hooked me, with other moments of unnerving calm, like on the title track. It's as unpredictable as it is punishing, somehow maintaining a chokehold on melody while also pushing pushing the limits of complexity and dissonance within the band.
This is no ordinary love.
A mystifying aura appears like an opaque veil for the soul when Sade starts playing, with the band's tasty saxophones being just as integral to their sound as their titular frontwoman. Love Deluxe is a masterclass in restraint. Every note, every pause happens for the greater good of the neighboring notes. Sade's tracks like No Ordinary Love wrap you in a soulful embrace, while Cherish the Day is the perfect soundtrack to those quiet, intimate moments that might be forgotten if we didn't take the time out to be present. Her voice feels like velvet against the backdrop of minimalistic instrumentation, and every track drips with grace and emotion. No flashy production needed. Religious allegories have always run strong with Andy Hull, and that's part of what makes A Black Mile to the Surface so compelling. It's a concept album about a dying mining town in South Dakota. Wait, what does that have to do with religion? Americana influence forms the backbone of this chilling record, pairing the band's indie sensibilities with louder moments rife with the kind of catharsis desperately needed to diffuse the bombs planted by Manchester Orchestra. It's incredibly rewarding with repeat listens, as it glues you to its atmospheric pressure chamber via symbolic lyrics, and yes, a lot of existential doom too.
If I could play back every moment to you now, spend love sick, keep swelling up, morning spit, garlic on the counter, find the sink if I can.
While maybe not a traditional concept album, there's absolutely a wintry connective tissue running throughout rooms of the house. Jordan Dreyer further defined his spoken word vocal delivery on the Hard to Pigeonhole band's third album. The raw passion radiates between the bandmates, you feel it track to track, proving that restraint can be just as effective as in-your-face post-hardcore. Let's be honest, every line feels like either a gut punch or a personal revelation, as the minimalist emo meets indie instrumentation allows the storytelling to catch fire. It also doesn't hurt that they seemingly have an underground bunker full of icy instrumentation weapons that truly set this album apart from the rest.
Holy crow, it don't taste so bad. I gotta play with our machines.
I'm not entirely sure why I chose to sleep on Every Time I Die for as long as I did, but Low Teens appearing on a list of my favorite albums ever less than 6 months after my first time listening to the band should tell you everything that you need to know. Low Teens is a helter-skelter beast dripping with anguish as life bleeds out in real time. The band combines metalcore ferocity with deeply poignant writing and tenacious D, as in drums, especially on songs like Religion of Speed, and the unstoppable It Remembers, featuring a spine-tingling collab with Brendan Urie. They're battling inner demons, we're battling inner demons. Why not have a killer soundtrack with some absolutely screaming riffage to inspire positive change and perhaps release some demons along the way?
Learn to fire breathing, though I feed on things that fell. You can learn to levitate with just a little help. Levitate with just a little help.
World Building 101? Take a page from Trench's book and find a way inside the mind of Tyler Joseph. 21 Pilots went scorched earth on mental health stigmas this time, as they bonded those themes of identity via a shadowy fictional world called Dima. Oh, Dima! But let's be honest, come on, Dima? It's regional at best. Regional at best, motherfucker. It's an ambitious concept album that pushes 21 Pilots out of their comfort zone, with Josh's drumming serving as the album's unbreakable back. Songs like Levitate and Jumpsuit display an impressive blend of alternative rock and hip-hop, while Neon Gravestones offers a sobering meditation on mental illness that always gets the tears flowing. Who's cutting onions? Trench is a bit of an emotional roller coaster, with the heavy subject matter 1 minute and cute songs for Grandpa's legacy the next, but the key is that every song is presented in a way that feels fresh and relatable without talking down to the audience. The prep school trio came out like a tour de force on Only God Was Above Us, and yes, I'm calling their latest their best and most cohesive album. The band rebuilt their core strengths, proceeding to experiment with intricate chamber pop arrangements and neo-psychedelia influence to amazing effect. The second I heard Capricorn, it was like hearing Vampire Weekend again for the first time, and I can't tell you how good it feels to fall back in love with a new body of work from a band that you've always really liked but never exactly loved. The Dream Team production is bulletproof, filling soundscapes with lush layers, including breathtaking bass, saxophone, gorgeous strings, guitar gusto, fascinating songwriting, sweltering drums. You name it, they're cooking with gas the whole way. From the beautifully wonky ice cream piano to the enchanting surfer created alongside Rostam, all the way to their longest song yet, Hope, I think this is an incredible album that gets better the more time you're willing to spend with it.
But she cries to the clicking of time.
An ill-fated artist's lone album, Grace, remains a must-hear decades later for a multitude of reasons, Jeff Buckley's ethereal hear it to believe it voice being reason number one. His poetic songwriting was always deeply intimate, with the accompanying music often having sharp, unexpected crescendos to echo all of this anguish he felt pent up inside his soul, like on So Real. That is a man working through something. Grace often sees Buckley's ruminations on life becoming sidetracked by his desires or his physical lusts, with those sometimes also fading to the side in favor of depth and vulnerability. His tracks like Lover, You Should Have Come Over, and Eternal Life hit extra hard, while his iconic cover of Hallelujah remains unmatched.
Standing here alone, I'm learning how to live life on my own.
Y2K post-grunge had a death grip on my teenage taste in music, and while most of that music was just a gateway drug, 3 Days Grace still has a 1X across my heart. Adam Gontier went through a rough period of drug abuse following his band's ascent to fame, and he turned those struggles through pain, rehab, and recovery into an album that improved on the core strengths of their already solid debut. 1X features Adam's trademark voice skulking and scowling its way through the trenches of mental warfare, while Barry Stock shreds through layers of trauma by providing a cavalcade of raucous guitars. Summer 06 until I started this channel in fall 09, this album was in heavy rotation, and it continues to mean a lot to me. So here's to Adam rejoining 3 Days Grace. Music knows no language barrier. Not that lyrics would be the first thing that most people would go to in a discussion about Moon Safari, but instrumentally speaking even, the French duo Air meticulously built a loungy, down-tempo space pop masterpiece that was destined for my personal Hall of Fame. Vocoded vocals work as meditative guides, namely on Sexy Boy and the breathtaking You Make It Easy, as the album's true north aligns with the creative synergy of these incredible musicians. I was given this CD at a weird time in life, not expecting to be blown away the moment track 1 slid all 7 minutes of its Tropical Paradise earworm through my headphones. For years, Moon Safari was my go-to for creating a calm environment before sleep, from the satisfying slow burn Talisman to the album's fuzzy swan song Penelope's Voyage. This really is a fully immersive adventure that's just as challenging as it is comfortable.
I'm gonna change the world.
I'll admit I hesitated on Pierce the Veil long ago before even hearing their music. I thought they were another dime a dozen scene band given the name and visuals, especially back in the Hot Topic MySpace era. I of course couldn't have been more wrong, as Pierce the Veil are ridiculously good with, in my opinion, no misses to their name, all hits, with this one just being a punch above the rest. Vic Fuentes is a bolt of lightning as the guitarist vocalist frontman, helping redefine define modern post-hardcore on their 2012 Crown Jewel Collide with the Sky, soaring high but never too close to the sun thanks to the unrelenting fury of the band and this album's perfectly executed guest spots. Whether it's the rampaging Bulls on the Bronx with its killer whale riff, the opening triple threat noises hell above match into water, or the nostalgic screamer props and mayhem, if you like well-constructed, emotional, and heavy, welcome to the wasteland. Minus the grunge, which I've softened on a bit, Houses of the Holy is a temple for Led Zeppelin still in their prime, delivering a distinctly less bluesy, more expansive rock and roll juggernaut. I think I like that this album doesn't have most of their overplayed hits, impressing you right out of the gate. Shout out to Song Remains the Same with that badass riffing and incredible solo. Jimmy Page wears the captain hat well as guitarist, songwriter, producer, with the rest of the band masterfully playing through uncharted waters. Robert Plant gives some of my favorite Zeppelin vocals ever on Rain Song, Over the Hills is unreal, and Dancing Days has some sinister guitar grit. I could keep glazing, but TLDR, the sound of this album was highly influential in the formation of the alternative rock mountain we know today.
Mama named him Tyler and his brothers call him T, and the bank they call him when that wide clear like season 3 or something. Skable named him Bunny Hop.
Tyler wasn't even really on my radar until Cherry Bomb, but Ben Flower Boy? That album made me a fan for life, surpassed only by T himself on Call Me If You Get Lost. Dare I say no skips are rare in modern rap? The creator made one appear out of thin air, complete with bulletproof bars, interjections from host DJ Drama, and a grab bag of bangers that toe the line of hip-hop, jazz, funk, and mellow soul. Tyler spits out ruminations on a growing chemistry with a good friend's partner, with both involved knowing that it's wrong, but they're not able to deny basic chemistry. All that boils over, and it comes to a head on the jaw-dropping 8-minute freestyle Wilshire.
Taste you all over my teeth. Never rock and just tonight. Okay.
Optimistic emo is an anomaly Jimmy Eat World knows well. They've flourished over multiple decades, creatively and commercially, consistently dropping albums worthy of your time. I'd argue none has done that better than Futures, a thrilling night passage that sees frontman Jim Adkins facing some truly difficult predicaments, making other standouts like Night Drive cut the tension gently in one of my favorite Jimmy deep cuts, period. Jim and Tom seemingly took some Husker Du influence for the album's guitar tones and overall tenacity, exploding with energy on Work, and spiraling out of control on Pain, which was my introduction to the band via Midnight Club 3. You've gotta appreciate how urgent the guitars sound consistently top to bottom.
The lights shine like a neon show. No place to stop, no place to go.
When you review music on the internet, there's certain artists that come with a heavy reputation. By that, I mean it's hard to listen to a band as legendary as Joy Division neutrally with tempered expectations. I waited until I really felt like I was getting into post-punk in the mid-2010s to give this a proper listen, and it instantly became more than a t-shirt to me. We hear a young troubled singer Ian Curtis at his most brilliant, although it's his bandmates that truly breathe the gift of life into the music. You can't necessarily expect to love this on first listen, but who's to say you won't? I went from having a few huge favorites like Inner Zone and She's Lost Control that I played way more consistently than others, but that expanded when I got the vinyl. Suddenly every song's a highlight and you're bopping along to the underlying new wave vibe they're laying down. If you're into psychedelic pop with genuine swagger that makes great use of meticulous production techniques, you might also like the modern indie Bible Currents by Kevin Parker's Tame Impala. It's not that Kevin's observational writing is so deep all the time. I think the Aussie virtuoso spends more time perfecting the groove, the drums, where the synth sits in the mix, or how the guitar hangs in the balance. Yes, I'm Changing was the background music to tons of old ARTV videos, so it's probably not shocking Currents made the cut. But seriously, forgetting all of this album's success and just looking at it objectively, it's packed with so many bangers. The mood is like Kevin added flavor to each note individually, like a chef seasoning their dish. I'll be the first to admit, all 5 singles happening in the first 6 tracks of a 14-song album, it makes Third Eye Blind front-heavy. But it's not the back half dropout some like to claim. Alternative rock jolts the bones of the band's self-titled debut like an electric eel, grabbing your attention with hair-raising details that dance macabre with life's bitter coming-of-age anxieties. Stephen Jenkins was never stronger than with guitarist Kevin Cadigan by his side, harmonizing and co-writing the majority of the album tracks, despite Jenkins being notoriously hard to work with. Ridiculously catchy melodies spew like a geyser throughout, drenching listeners in a happier-looking shade of depression compared to the actual darkness looming in the corner. Those 5 gargantuan singles are among my favorite songs ever written, so if you're new to the band, it's a great place to start, but you also can't go wrong with deep cuts like I Want You, Thanks a Lot, or Narcolepsy. Modern alternative music would not be what it is today without the pioneering of the Pixies, so let's cheers to Doolittle for being not only an improvement over Surfer Rosa, if not by a ton, at least by a little, but also the opening of the door for scrappy bands like this in the industry. Whether it's the fiery debaser cracking your skull, or Monkey Gone to Heaven erasing whatever you thought you knew about the band's blueprint, you'd be hard-pressed to find an album that goes toe-to-toe with Doolittle's bizarro songwriting, raw production, and legacy. Most songs blow through like a wild storm, leaving you saying, what the hell was that? But in a good way, before finally closing out with one last storm, My Creme de la Creme, Gouge Away. God, that song's amazing. Kim Deal, never change.
I call it mind eraser, no chaser at all.
Them Crooked Vultures' one and only LP is a legendary supergroup explosion, blending the talents of Josh Homme, Dave Grohl, and John Paul Jones into something gritty, heavy, bluesy, and unrelenting. You can hear each member's signature style throughout, whether it's Grohl's thunderous drumming, Homme's penchant for desert rock, or Jones's intricate bass lines the world was deprived of for far too long. Tracks like Dead End Friends and Scumbag Blues capture their bullish tenacity, seamlessly blending hard rock grooves with bluesy undertones without a single skip in the mix. Hearing the riff from Gunman makes me lose my shit every time. It's mind-bending all around, buoyed by other undeniable cuts like the behemoth Elephants, Bandoliers with its eerie undertones, and the kooky fighter Mind Eraser, No Chaser. Going so long with only traces of Rush in my life was such a mistake, but I credit the first Rock Band game, Trailer Park Boys, a longtime Canadian patron, and the film I Love You Man for planting the seeds. Moving Pictures is one of those endlessly replayable albums that feels so massive in scope, yet it's somehow accessible and progressive simultaneously? Geddy Lee's iconic bass, Neil Peart's intoxicating drum arrangements, Alex Lifeson's inimitable guitar, Tom Sawyer leans into Peart's incredibly detailed writing with some of their most memorable guitar work ever, bolstered by Limelight with its everlasting gobstopper of catchiness, Red Barchetta owning those slamming riffs, and the 11-minute Camera Eye, which remains one of their best tracks ever.
I thought she'd be there holding daisies. She always waits for me.
90s alternative music has so many undiscovered or forgotten gems, and one I'm happy to dust off for your consideration is the shoegazing, spaced-out alt-rockers hum, specifically their seminal 1995 record, You'd Prefer an Astronaut. They pin you to the wall with a wave of raw intensity that's unlike your typical heavy because it's like a fevered, dreamlike world spiked with cacophonous guitars and frenzied drumming. Hum only had one minor hit, Stars, but it's a flawless work of art, sonically and lyrically, as it has a heavier edge I can't pry my ears away from. It's a prime example of an underrated 90s gem still holding up so well, led by personal favorites like the warped anthem Little Dipper, Why I Like Robins, and Suicide Machine. It's not actually autumn without my annual listen through Basement's Color Me in Kindness, a nail-driving blaze of emo glory worthy of a main stage takeover. Color Me in Kindness taps the grungy vein of post-hardcore with an underlying alternative punk venom that made Basement a can't-miss act in the crowded 2012 space. Basement breaks the tension with a heavy emphasis on its moody, thick bass lines and the tight drumming that gives each track a sense of urgency, burning through a sense of burden in songs like Comfort, while the vocals eventually peek through the haze, carrying their own sense of frustration. The mix allows each instrument to shine in its own right, especially during quieter moments where the guitars take on an almost shoegazy quality, creating space for introspection while weathering an internal storm. Weezer's Blue album is such a crunchy, hook-driven masterpiece, it's hard not to feel an immediate wave of early 90s alt-rock nostalgia every time one of its era-defining singles hits my ears. As someone who got into Weezer with the song Beverly Hills, yes, there are dozens of us, Matt Damon included, it was the sizzling riffage and intriguing lyricism of Say It Ain't So that got me incredibly curious about this band. For as carefree as Blue presents, it's really just an anxious ball of sweater sweat disguised by the locked-in rhythm section and blistering power chords that give the often whimsical melodies a distinctive edge. In the garage, gleefully basks in safe spaces, No One Else features bullish guitars while exposing some romantic insecurities, and the epic closer Only in Dreams winds you up and down more than a yo-yo, but I think that's half the fun right there.
Look at the testament, better than ever been, making an estimate for my pay. Work like a Mexican, saving the rest of it, buying a resident on a new day.
Taboo is a nightmarish, genre-bending trek through the darkest corners of Denzel Curry's mind, divided into 3 distinct parts that reflect his ongoing battle through the trenches into the light. Visions of blueprints being burned show how the fruits of Denzel's labors never came for free. Tracks like Black Balloons have a very distinct groove, contrasting ethereal melodies with deep commentary on mental health, while Vengeance comes in hot to flex Zeltron's versatility on an album that'll drop your jaw with machine gun quickness on Sumo, then hit a 180 with, say, The Blackest Balloon. The violent imagery spews like lava from the rapper's fast flow, melting earthquaking beats with more psychedelic conscious hip-hop tones. Casey Musgraves' Golden Hour feels like a beam of sunlight streaming through the most beautiful stained glass window your eyes have ever seen. The opulent production paired with her smooth vocals creates a soul-soothing meditation on a magical time in life, her honeymoon phase. How could an album be so personal and so universal at the same time? It's almost unreal the way Casey wraps Mother Nature around her finger with laser-precise vocals, making it all feel as dreamy as a Studio Ghibli film. Slow Burn tells all in a dreamlike state, Space Cowboy brings that grounded heartbreak to an otherwise happy affair, Mother beautifully articulates the fear of losing a loved one, and the mind-bending use of acoustic instruments with steel guitars and then pairing that up with subtle electronic flourishes, when that comes out on tracks like Oh What a World, all I can say is that's genius. It's the perfect balance of country and pop.
Far from God, as angels can fly.
Shirley Manson is just eternally cool. It's a fact, I'm sorry, and while I've become a big fan of her band Garbage, their later output just never quite surpassed the iconic 1995 self-titled album. The LP represents a raw and electrifying change of the tides at the crossroad of grunge, pop, and alternative rock, almost like an airtight 90s time capsule, except don't bury Garbage. How are you gonna bury something that still sounds this fresh? Manson's powerful vocals lead the charge, bringing a blend of vulnerability and fierceness on tracks like Only Happy When It Rains and Milk. The layered production, courtesy of drummer Butch Vig, features features distorted guitars and pulsating synth textures, creating an atmosphere that pulls you into its whirlwind and doesn't put you back down.
No regrets, 'cause you're my sunset, fiery red.
Desire I Want to Turn Into You is not only one of the newest albums on my list, it's an otherworldly avant-pop masterpiece that confirmed my worst fears. Caroline is serving harder, better, faster, stronger every release, and if this is only her second solo album, I mean, where is Up from the Stratosphere of Perfection? I feel like I'm having my palm read, with the ethereal soundscapes moving like a thrilling maze throughout. The Baroque instrumentation paired up with these profound lyrics is like a chef's kiss from Gordon Ramsay, except he loved your music, not your pasta. Tracks like Butterfly Net radiate hope with the kind of richness I never could have dreamed I'd hear in this lifetime. It's truly breathtaking. Opener Welcome to My Island and closer Billions feel intrinsically connected. Such good musical pieces, while Fly to You highlights her mastery of vocal layering while juggling the talents of Dido and Grimes with just the right amount of spice. Beaming with a miles away smile, American Candy explodes like a bottle rocket of fleeting youth, still young enough to be naive enough to think that you can outrun the problems. The Main has so consistently brought great music to the pop rock scene, but this one is next level to me, a full-on colorful burst of infectious hooks. Singer John O'Callaghan vividly articulates his feelings over shimmering guitar riffs and punchy drum rhythms, as the jubilant instrumentation on highlights like Diet Soda Society, My Hair, and Same Suit, Different Tie feature bright synth lines that perfectly complement the rich warm weather vibe. Also, all three of those are among my favorite songs ever made, as are some of the others on this album. It's just one that makes me very happy to listen to.
This gravity is the quadrant bleeding haunted terror.
You wanted high voltage? I got high voltage. Relationship of Command by At the Drive-In, released in the year 2000. This mathematically calculated prism captures the bizarro energy of a group of guys growing jaded on life in the system at large. Jagged guitar riffs cut your face off on tracks like One Arm Scissor, while Mannequin Republic fights with a ferocity that's hard to shake off. The rhythm section clocks in with relentless articulation, almost stealing the show on certain corners of the album, while others are more defined by Cedric Bixler's manic vocals or the raw, frenzied riffing a la Cosmonaut Jim Ward. Command is an adrenaline junkie's joyride for the ages. Miraculously, it never crashes out despite constantly threatening to pull the wheel while blasting the radio max volume. Thank God someone sent a song from this album to me not even that long ago, because Heaven or Las Vegas feels like it was the missing piece of my heart that's sung in a tongue only the lovely Elizabeth Fraser could truly decode. The Scottish band treats their second major label album like a scientific exploration of ethereal soundscapes, which results in something so hypnotic it feels like floating through a cloud that's just as soft as my pet chinchillas. Guitars sparkle like a sun-soaked river against a mesmerizing backdrop of reverberating percussion and bass, while Elizabeth's reassuring voice soars like a bird, effortlessly gliding above as her words hug the listener in an enchanting embrace. My favorite song, Cherry Colored Funk, pulses with an indescribable dream pop energy, making the entire album a cornerstone of the genre from its first track alone, full of must-hear moments like the fuzzy ice blink Luck to the wandering eyes of Wolf in the Breast.
All things must
I'll come right out and say it. All Things Must Pass is an ambitious double album masterpiece and the best solo album of any former Beatle member ever. George Harrison provides listeners a rich tapestry of luscious instrumentation, with layers of guitars, strings, horns, and so much more, creating 106 minutes of captivating, genre-spanning, career-defining musicality. My Sweet Lord is one of my first memories with a song ever. Who knows exactly how old I was, but it oozes grace and unrestrained talent. Harrison truly found his voice here, and it's nothing short of a magical mystery tour through treasure troves of tracks like Wah Wah, Let It Down, Isn't It a Pity, and naturally its title track, All Things Must Pass.
True runner, bitch, make the name stick, not for sale, but I'm taking payment.
I know you never would have guessed this, but I'm not exactly a rap aficionado, but when it hits me, I get so fired up I have to talk about it. Anyways, here's Run the Jewels 2. RTJ2 builds on the relentless lyrical dexterity and hard-hitting beats that perfectly capture the duo's unique chemistry. LP's menacing production cannot be topped, layering up booming bass and sharp percussion as he sets and shares the stage with Killer Mike. Great guest spots on this record too. Zach De La Rocha from Rage Against the Machine, Boots, Travis Barker, and Gangsta Boo, may she rest in peace. The duo trade razor-sharp verses, tackling societal issues, personal struggles, and doing it all with a big sense of humor on board. Tracks like Oh My Darling Don't Cry bend aggressive samples with rapid lyrical fire takedowns, creating sonic warfare that's incredibly powerful and introspective. Tiny Music, Songs from the Vatican Gift Shop. What a weird freaking name. Maybe that's part of the reason the best Stone Temple Pilots album is largely forgotten. Never mind the core and purple only narrative, that's so boring. Tiny Music is a mesmerizing exploration of the band's creative willingness to explore outside the lines, showing off a kaleidoscope of sound that truly defied expectation. Scott Weiland's vocals glide from sultry whispers to raucous crescendos, enveloping you in a purgatory type of atmosphere, or at least you get the feeling that's where Scott's at. Tracks like Big Bang Baby erupt with loudmouth guitars and a monster chorus, while Tumble in the Rough introduces a haunting labyrinth melody that lingers long after it fades. But Dan DeLeo really deserves his flowers with this one. Tripping on a Hole in a Paper Heart alone is insane, but his work does not go underappreciated here. None of it does, none of the members. In fact, I love everything about this record and how out of pocket it all becomes. Is Marquee Moon one of the greatest guitar records ever? Of course it is, but it's also become a personal classic for me, even though I had mistakenly, accidentally gone most of my life without hearing it. Who doesn't love an exhilarating journey through the heart of post-punk and new wave? Television's 1977 debut album is a vivid, deeply satisfying masterpiece that blends intricate guitar work with the late Tom Verlaine's poetic lyricism. Songs like See No Evil and Prove It showcase a vibrant rhythm section, playing off of Lloyd's long-winded guitar passages while Verlaine's inimitable voice adds a bewitching charm. The Black Sheep albums tend to speak to me. As a black sheep in the family myself, takes one to know one, and I'm here for you, Louder Now. Fred Mascherino is the shot-in-the-arm TBS needed to survive, absolutely shredding the gnarly guitar licks that have this album chomping like a hungry shark. But that's not all. Fred does fan-damtastic backing vocals to complement frontman Adam Lazzara in a way no other member ever has. The opening cut, What's It Feel Like to Be a Ghost, sets the tone with its taunting alt-rock energy, while Make Damn Sure became a defining anthem for 2000's emo rock. My Blue Heaven is the band's most underrated gem. Liar cranks the heat up to 11 without losing the fun. And Spin is insanely out of control loud and stands as my favorite TBS song. The kids love shoegaze again. I don't fully understand why, but I'm not going to spend too much time questioning it, as it's one of my favorite genres. But oddly enough, one of the most popular bands in the shoegaze genre is one that I didn't take the plunge on until a couple of years ago. And once I pulled the plug on Slowdive's Discog, let me tell you, I've now been cleansed in the blood of reverb. Souvlaki is an essential shoegaze record that merges vague dreamlike patterns with melancholic beauty. The vibrating delayed guitar is at the heart of the album, swirling in an atmospheric haze that feels both spaced out and fully present, much like the ever-present moon on the album staples Allison and When the Sun Hits. 40 Days floats in a blissed-out oasis of denial, while the deeper cuts feature everything from Rachel Goswell powering up on Sing, or the sanity spiraling out of control on Melon Yellow. You might enjoy Souvlaki most if you treat it like a meditative experience. One that's emotionally resonant, yet sonically adventurous, especially for the time it was recorded in. MGMT deliberately pivoted away from mainstream expectations as they embraced experimental psychedelic pop with all of its quirks on Congratulations. It's not that this album isn't accessible, no. It's packed with oddly captivating music. It's just very retro compared to the digital aesthetic found on Oracular Spectacular. Welcome to a land where kaleidoscopic synths, pitch-perfect guitars, and offset rhythms almost challenge you to make sense of the chaos, some of which goes on for quite a while, and deservedly so. Siberian breaks as long and it kicks ass. Flash Delirium bounces between genres in a dizzying whirl, while Brian Eno channels the great producer while running wild through a 60s hallway that would make Scooby and the gang proud. The album is divisive, but that's what makes it fascinating. MGMT rewards your patience with the kind of detailing Walter White only dreamed his car wash could have. I can't even imagine what 2000s music clubs must have been like in New York City, because that era birthed some of the greatest music of the 21st century so far, including Is This It by The Strokes. Scruffy post-punk complements the half-sneering, half-apathetic vocal delivery from Julian Casablancas. Albert Hammond Jr. and Nick Valenci share the spotlight as the two landmark guitarists of The Strokes, kicking the groove wide open by not worrying about keeping the production too clean. The raw inertia is palpable, pulling off flaming riffs, tight bass work, in the pocket drumming, and of course Julian's gritty crooning, which makes Is This It sound like it's continuously rolling its eyes at you. Maybe I can understand why Coldplay weren't taken seriously early on. They were a tad derivative, but damn talented still. And if you can't at least admit Viva La Vida or Death and All His Friends by Coldplay marked a major positive shift in the band's sound, we're living in two very different spheres. They incorporate grandiose orchestral elements, electric songwriting that pulls from England's dark history, and the all-encompassing production comes courtesy of the legendary Brian Eno, which is the MGMT song. Hey, we heard that. Violet Hill is life-changingly beautiful, played to heartbreaking effect with its sweeping strings and pounding guitar rhythms lighting up the winter sky. Strawberry Swing and Cemeteries of London are equally fascinating in their storytelling, summoning massive-sounding instrumentals that had Coldplay sounding on top of the world creatively and sonically. It's only the end of the world. What's the big effing deal? Forget bombast. Absolution goes nuclear war on political paranoia as Muse embraced a new type of turmoil via symphonic rock, electronic elements, and larger-than-life arrangements often powered by crushing guitar. Stockholm Syndrome and Hysteria strike directly and destructively, locked onto the target like a heat-seeking missile. Muse's third LP is both vicious and vulnerable, with soaring falsettos and bone-chilling piano passages, winning big for songs like Apocalypse Please, Endlessly, and Butterflies and Hurricanes. Absolution is a version of a Muse on fire, a band at their most audacious while in the midst of a perfect 3-album run that goes from Origin of Symmetry, Absolution, to Black Holes and Revelations.
Well, I think I've gone mad. Isn't that so sad?
Indie rock with off-the-charts sleaze and style. It's the tortured Tumblr blogger's wet dream aesthetically speaking, yet the 1975 managed to be so much more than just black and white. The band's excellent sophomore album is a moving vehicle for Matty Healy's vices and virtues, exposing the frontman's thoughts like a heart pinned to a sleeve with a hypodermic needle. You can't help but get lost in their interpretation of modern living, whether you're like me and still bop a bit too hard to the sound, or if you prefer the existential dread conjured by If I Believe You, or even the escapism provided by the album's long instrumental passages.
Would you come here and spin with me? I've been dying to get you dizzy.
Peripheral vision feels like stepping into a warm sunspot, surfacing again after being frozen for 100 years, but then the Fire Nation attacked. Wait, a second. This is actually my wife's favorite album of all time. It came out a few months before we started dating. She introduced me to Turnover with the song Hello Euphoria, and seeing that its parent album landed in my top 40, the rest is history. Dopamine levels remain in a state of flux across its 11 tracks, pitting feelings of despair against bright, reverb-soaked instrumentation. The music kind of tricks your mind into believing the tightrope walk will be easy, and with such dreamy, organic production courtesy of Will Yip, the pent-up turmoil has a proper way to drain.
It's like learning a new language.
I'm not sure there's a better encapsulation of the early 2000s post-punk revival than Turn on the Bright Lights. Interpol raised hairs you didn't even know you had with their endlessly fascinating debut. Paul Banks creates an instantly distinct zone for his vocal, aiding his bandmates for a razor-sharp, moody record crafted with meticulous precision. The entirety of Bright Lights feels old-school cinematic, almost like it's soundtracking the late-night wanderings of some lonely soul in snowy New York City. Tracks like Obstacle 1 and Roland are dripping with attitude, as Paul Banks' searing vocals combine with the band's icy, jagged guitars to create this detached yet deeply emotional world full of faceless figures you can't quite recognize. Bloom Changed My Life is both an album and a concept. Before Beach House, I was a darker, more morose person, I feel like, but this brilliant indie duo met my cynicism head on and really said, how about a nice day at sea instead? If the ship's sinking, save my Bloom vinyl, because I can't even express how soothing this record has been to my soul over the years. From my first listen of Myth, the fuzzy butterflies were going crazy, but then I discovered Lazuli, Wishes, songs that have a whole other world of escapism I've been taking solace in since 2012. The sun-soaked melodies imprint on your brain as Victoria Legrand's enrapturing voice is like heaven, with Alex Scally's blissful guitar and synth work further defining the duo's 2020 vision. Treat Bloom like an old friend, nostalgic but also timeless, like a fine wine that just keeps getting better, as Bloom floats high above the ozone, grounding our fears while pulling the most beautiful flowers from a place of underlying pain.
What does it matter now? What does it matter now?
God, does this album satisfy the caveman in me? It's like the opening riff turns on, my brain goes dumb, and starts headbanging like an animalistic madman. Foo Fighters know their way around a kitchen, but anyone will tell you, cooking is cooking, but cooking with fire is a different breed, which is exactly what they created by recording straight to tape for their magnum opus, Wasting Light. Butch Vig worked closely with the Foos to achieve this hard-rocking, garagey sound that harkens back to the simplicity of their early material while keeping the stadium-sized anthems intact. Nate Mendel's plump bass lines keep this vessel rapidly sailing towards whatever demon Dave's planning to confront next, whether it's Arlandria and the hypocrisy, Miss the Misery with its brutal honesty, or even the rise from the ashes again life-affirming closer Walk. Taylor Hawkins roars with the thunder of 1,000 gods, tearing up the kit as Grohl rallies the band through 11 monster tunes that all fit together like family, managing to have unique identities and delicious instrumentation. Wait, why is this better than food? Why do I want to eat this vinyl? Summer 2013, The Mother We Share on repeat on the stereo. I'm 21 years old, life is good. To be that young and free and naive again, but I still feel the pull, the echo of who I was the first time I played The Bones of What You Believe, and it's an emotional sting because time's the one thing we can never get back. Needless to say, Scottish trio Churches delivered a chilling masterpiece as their debut album. They served up synth-pop supremacy, carving out a home in the genre through a foolproof blend of sugary melodies, rollicking synths, and heartfelt lyrics. Lauren Mayberry's unassuming demeanor is quickly eclipsed by her one-of-a-kind voice. But I also want to give a shout out to Martin Doherty, the amazing multi-instrumentalist and vocalist who we hear front and center on the riveting track Under the Tide. From the anthemic We Sink, which FIFA 14 players should know well, to the emotional anchor Recover, this album never surrenders to burnout or generic songwriting. It's all bangers, all heart, all the time.
Don't you know you were born to die, poor man? Don't you know that you're gonna do yourself in? And you'll always wake up tired.
So I cried heavily my first time through Brave Faces Everyone by Spanish Love Songs. No, there will be no shame in that. I had just never felt so represented as a struggling, apathetic, neurodivergent 30-something weirdo, and this album has that constant sense of dreadful doom that's worsening year by year, the same feelings I was having leading up to the COVID lockdown. BFE for me is the pandemic era personified. Its fervent, upbeat guitars have so much energy you might expect them to spontaneously combust on a track like Losers, contradicting the bleak message of barely scraping by mentally, physically, and worst of all, financially. Mental Anguish is balanced with passing societal commentary by frontman Dylan Slocum, his snotty voice being a huge standout in the modern punk scene as he delivers visceral, gut-punching lyrics that mirror the struggles of everyday life like a shattered disco ball. The album's mix of unfiltered, depressing lyrics and more vibrant instrumentation hits like a sledgehammer to your heart, to the point where I genuinely wouldn't advise you to listen to this if you're not in a good place, because buddy, it will fuck you up. This is punk rock for people like me who feel everything deeply, whether we want to or not. Yay, that's fun. But I really did feel like the band were speaking directly to me, because so much of my past was represented in these songs, Losers 2 being the hardest song on the entire album for me to listen to, but also my favorite.
You're gonna act so badly. I wanna love you back so bad. I wanna love you back so bad.
How exactly Metric remains so underrated despite their prolific album discography is a mystery I'll rant about another day. The important thing is that you let me yap for a minute about the overlooked treasure, Art of Doubt. Emily Haines is a mesmerizing force of sardonic wisdom, gliding effortlessly over irresistible bass grooves, glowing 80s synths, smashing drums, and incredibly important like a volcano on top of the ice cream sundae, Jimmy Shaw is a guitar master and once again, underrated. Listening to the album feels like getting invited to a roller rink party in a liminal safe space where only the sound and rhythm matter. There's of course vivid reflections below the bright surfaces, calculating the struggle between vulnerability and resilience, as Emily added some biting political commentary throughout the track listing for the first time since their early days. To quickly frame this house on the verge of collapse, In Utero is the raw, jagged successor to the polished throne of their breakthrough Nevermind. It's among the final bursts of ingenuity from one of music's brightest souls, Kurt Cobain, and what became their final proper album is a viciously thorough exorcism of their frontman's inner trauma through the lens of characters often inspired by what he was reading, see Francis Farmer, but also see Serve the Servants, where Kurt flips the finger to the media for their ongoing harassment. This chaotic yet calculated production by Steve Albini gives it an abrasive edge that I've always admired, with every track unapologetically pushing boundaries and redefining what grunge could be.
We pretend that we just don't care, but we care.
Breaking up and breaking out is easier said than done, but Lorde did both with finesse on Melodrama. Not only one of the best pop albums ever with a lasting richness, but also one that's nostalgic and modern. I was unbelievably impressed on my first listen, because everything clicked immediately. I got it. Jack Antonoff's production, the musical sea change, and the track listing conveying precisely what Lorde wanted to say, how she wanted to say it. It was clearly very important to her, as she was hands-on with production and sampling. Supercut dazzles with a glowing synth pulse like a forest of fireflies. Hard Feelings Loveless raises the stakes, with the two halves journaling a healthy post-breakup cycle, coming with a fire in her eye compared to the girl we had just met a few tracks earlier on the heartbreaking piano ballad Liability. Lorde flirts with the idea of life in a bottle before snapping back to a more grounded reality, as songs like The Louvre and Rider in the Dark showcase the kind of wisdom that can only come from a mind this brilliant.
California's waiting, mommy's little monster.
She's got a mission and I'm collateral damage.
For a silly flock of slackers, Blink-182 played it straight surprisingly well by throwing out the map on their way to the band's boldest evolution yet, a surprisingly smooth collision course channeled into a post-pop-punk rage that whistled like a boiling tea kettle. Untitled stung because of how much I related to what Tom and Mark were singing, venting the heightened emotion in the room by raising the musical barometer and kicking its ass in the process. The late great Jerry Finn pushed them to explore heavier themes backed by angrier drumming, bass, and vocals, and for me, it's peak Blink. Stockholm Syndrome slams like a battering ram thanks to Travis Barker's drums, as Tom and Mark dual-wield the microphone, with classics like I Miss You always hitting a sweet spot. The same goes for the endlessly cool Violence, Easy Target, and Go are incredibly underrated, and one of my favorite highlights from their entire career. All of this with Robert Smith, who I'm going to talk about more later in this video.
It helps to take away the pain. Hey, Johnny.
There's a lyric from the song Autumn by Trophy Eyes that perfectly captures my love for this album. Laid out on my childhood bed to the sound of Sam's Town and my hands behind my head. That was me, in awe of a band I already worshipped as a kid thanks to Hot Fuss. Brandon Flowers definitely oversold it on the 06 press tour, but make no mistake, this is not a sophomore slump. It's a sharp, worthwhile turn into Vegas, where the Killers dropped the glitz and glam in favor of massive sounding rock and roll Americana. I'll never forget my first listen to When You Were Young on the radio back when world premieres were a thing, and my god, my 14-year-old neurodivergent ass was losing my mind, which they later read on the second single, which is an all-time favorite too. I'm gonna need to say my piece on Uncle Johnny though, while I have the platform to do so, and I really love this song. It's always stood out to me with that smoking riff from Dave. The storytelling is incredibly engaging, and I hate seeing it always ranked last on the album. So many of the anthemic choruses are chest pounders, with the album unfolding like a spectacle with loads of variety and flavor in the deep cuts, as the band soldiers through introspection on Why Do I Keep Counting and Bling, offsetting that negative charge with the bombastic For Reasons Unknown and the roaring Sam's Town that set the perfect tone for a visit, even if it's just for the day.
I am just a child. I am nothing more than the basic functions I am running from.
You might not recognize this band, but that doesn't mean start skipping ahead. Sit back down, take your finger off the screen, or if you need stimulation immediately, then go listen to all of this right now. It's the smashing album opener, and if you like that vibe, keep going. Passive Me, Aggressive You is an exhilarating world of shimmering synths and furious indie rock in a late 2000s meets 80s jar. But don't let the pop hooks fool you. They get weird, they get loud, and they get out of control. In the chaotic back and forth struggle between sounds, it's impressive how no one instrument is ever buried in the mix, as they walk an impossible tightrope above an insane asylum, dancing in the dark for 50 minutes straight, then taking the movie credits escape route on the finale Girls Like You. It's a band punching not only in a dream, but well above their weight class, and what dare I say is an overlooked classic stuffed with off-kilter bops top to bottom. Lane Staley and Jerry Cantrell sound godly together, which is why there will never be another Dirt, a harrowing diary often circling their singer Lane's ongoing struggles with addictions, ones that weighed on the late grunge icon's mind as he wrote the lyrics for the second Alice in Chains album. The record is driven by sludgy desert metal guitars, hammering bass lines, and the raw vocal emotion that becomes even more palpable in harmony with Cantrell. Them Bones is formidable with heavy grunge at the wheel, bulldozing everything in their path for 2 minutes straight, keeping that intensity flowing right into the howling Damn That River, which is the first of many moments that make my skin crawl from just a taste of how in deep this band was about to be. Dirt wraps you in a death roll, which makes me wonder if I'm a masochist that I keep coming back to this, or maybe it's just one of those records that I need to hear when I know that I need to hear something real. Might as well bleed black at this point in my life. It's AFI's emo punk classic Sing the Sorrow, melding dark gothic overtures with the kind of in-your-face urgency that begs to be played loudly. Tracks like the Warped Tour favorite Girls Not Grey and the evocative This Celluloid Dream show off their newfound knack for juggling crushing riffs, haunting melodies, and lyrics that hit like daggers, as Davey Havok spews his most versatile vocal performances ever. Driven by Jade Puget's maniacal shredding and Adam Carson's domineering drums, the band carved out a space where cutthroat emotion and bouncing punk collide, making Sing the Sorrow quintessential listening for any fan of post-hardcore or emo. I guess I feel lucky to have had their music in my arsenal, with Dancing Through Sunday, Death of the Seasons, Leaving Song Part 2, But Home Is Nowhere. It's a mile-high mountain of foiled rage, capped off by the icy ballad Silver and Cold, which was actually my second introduction to the band after Miss Murder. Darkly dreaming Robert, the mind behind The Cure, retreated to the shadows on 1989's gothic rock album Disintegration, a long one at 71 minutes, but undeniably a gloomy classic that finds beauty in suffering and morbidity. Robert Smith isn't exactly a coat of many colors, more a consistent blend of black and ruby red melting down the track listing, adding a fever dream quality to the album's production due to the frontman's intense use of hallucinogens while recording. It's very cinematic in scope, thanks to its droning guitars, wind chimes, haunting vocals, and unrelenting synths, building up the atmosphere to huge swells as they navigate through the selection of mind-bending songs. A rusted carousel of memories allows these tracks to ebb and flow without being crunched for time, with the majority of the tracks going on for well over 5 minutes, and some classics like the title track and the evergreen Pictures of You clock in at over 7. Pictures of You is also my personal favorite here, tied with Fascination Street, but it's a galley full of fierce competitors that move and breathe with compelling, albeit uncertain, purpose. Fact. America needs more manic street preachers in their lives, as the last studio appearances of Richie Edwards culminate in a snarling, glammed-up post-punk manifesto they named the Holy Bible. I was blown away by the album track 4 Stones, 7 Pounds, as Edwards' lyrics explored a young person battling anorexia, driven home by some arpeggiated guitar with loads of reverb, making for a wonderfully twisted listen. That track led me to the Holy Bible, where MSP immediately stabs you to the wall like Michael Myers, with their bleak, unnerving portrayal of mental anguish and political decay. Jagged guitar work and unrelenting intensity complement the tortured, confessional style of writing, exploding on mandatory listens like She Is Suffering, Archives of Pain, and my god, Faster is a truly perfect alternative rock tune. James Dean Bradfield sings with such conviction that it becomes almost a robust presence tearing through like a tornado, as Nicky Wire's tense bass lines tower amidst the smashing drums, with each element reinforcing the album's bleak atmosphere. The Holy Bible I wouldn't call an easy listen, but if you do take the gamble, it's one of the most one-of-a-kind, cathartic, and impactful albums out there.
It's fantastic, that is really what I think. Oh, by the way, which one's pink?
Pink Floyd is a rite of passage for any music fan. Dark Side of the Moon, Animals, The Wall, the scroll goes on, but topping my personal list of the greatest Floyd albums is their 1975 timeless masterpiece, Wish You Were Here. The glistening guitars on Shine On You Crazy Diamonds parts 1 through 5 almost seem to weep like a long-suffering willow, while the swirling synths and delicate piano work on the title track Wish You Were Here wrap you in a beautiful wave of pain, as David Gilmour's voice brings tears to your eyes and shivers down the spine. You really can't say enough about the sheer variety of organic instrumentation either, whether it's the sax or the glass harmonica, with Roger Waters' brilliant lyricism expertly hammering home a sense of befuddled melancholy that will never again be replicated. The universal themes of alienation seemingly apply to the music industry, wrapping sardonic commentary in a sweet sushi roll to make moments like the wistful Welcome to the Machine go down smoothly, even more so than track 3 Have a Cigar, where the bitterness against the man boils over.
Confidence is the balaclava, I'm sure you're baffled straight. And it's wrong, she can hardly wait.
Anything other than favorite worst nightmare supremacy is wrong. That's right. I'm saying the Arctic Monkeys' best album is their second album, the one where they perfected the kind of buzzy post-punk energy that their debut album gunned for. Call it the sound of the foundation settling, where a young rising band find their creative stride, refuse to be pigeonholed, and conquer the world seemingly from the comfort of a random pub in the UK. The rabid energy of tracks like the banging opener Brian Storm and the incredible This House is a Circus foam at the mouth with fast, angular guitars from Jamie Cook, as Matt Helders locks the hell in with punchy, athletic drumming. Alex Turner is more charming than ever, becoming vocally intoxicating as he uses these songs to depict shady characters and nightlife scenes with his trademark wit and cynicism. All of this pent-up aggression is beautifully laundered through the Arctic Monkey pipeline, coming out the other side of 505 wiser yet more confused than ever. The perfect metaphor for life in a nutshell. Depeche Mode have made a hefty chunk of music I'd call must-hear, yet topping that stack of albums every single time is their persuasive 1990 goth pop classic, Violator. It's a landmark album for the electronic rockers and for the music world at large, effortlessly flexing their ability to link dark themes with ghostly melodies. Flawless production lends itself to listeners finding something new to latch onto each time through the record, with new details always emerging for me when I'm listening to deep cuts like World in My Eyes or Blue Dress. You can't ignore the titans of Violator either. In fact, Enjoy the Silence was my introduction to the band through the Mike Shinoda remix back in the mid-2000s, and it remains one of the greatest songs and one of the greatest remixes out there, while Personal Jesus swaggers with its iconic riff in tow, building to the consequential Requiem Policy of Truth. Martin Gore's blackened songwriting aids the immaculate production, remaining a force to be reckoned with, as Alan Wilder and Fletch's contributions make the album's engine purr, with Dave Gahan's haunting vocal creating an atmosphere as brooding as it is euphoric. Koi no Yoken is a stunning culmination of Deftones' mastery of the dark arts, striking a sensational balance between chugging riffs and otherworldly audio driven far away by a band who knew exactly what they wanted. Subdued Chaos laments moments of internal shame, as Chino Moreno marries restless, quiet, loud screams to a rampaging fist of fury laid down by Abe Cunningham's amazing drumming and Stephen Carpenter's almost genty, bouncing lead guitar. The album opens up with Swerve City, walloping with a distorted guitar sound before shifting gears into Romantic Dreams, a trend that helps this album flow smoothly like a river to the Dead Sea where you'll float too. Koi no Yoken picks at the scab until blood's in the water, captivating with an unexplainable combination of love and longing framed through the lens of complex ambiguity. It's evidenced by the menacing leathers, Tempest with its bulldozer guitars, the cold-hearted Rosemary, and many other incredible tracks that make this mandatory listening for autumn.
When I think of it, my fingers turn to fists. I never did anything to you, man.
Underestimating the wit of Fiona Apple will always be a mistake, with the singer's top-shelf quality sophomore outing being her musical equivalent of putting all the cards on the table. Win the Pawn is a masterclass in revenge and intricately arranged storytelling. It kicks off with the piercing piano ballad On the Bound, where Fiona's jazzy inclinations set into motion what's to come, shaking her fist in rage on limp, before going full tilt art rock on the way things are. Each song unfolds like a diary entry you're not sure if you're even allowed to read, revealing layers of vulnerability as she draws from a seemingly endless well of bootstrap strength. John Brion's tempered production complements Fiona's raw delivery, and there's a stinging beauty in the way the instrumentation supports her brutal honesty as she drops the mask to show that even the toughest woman has a breaking point.
We are the Lotus kids, on better take note of this.
By the way, is the musical soul child of John Frusciante. That much is crystal clear, as the Chili Peppers allowed their recently rejoined guitarist to do a light reboot of the franchise, if you will. I didn't used to care for this one much beyond its singles, but that was a massive oversight, as by the way, is an off-kilter expedition through love and life by drawing on the band's signature sound and bending it in new and exciting ways. The band's pretty drastic sonic departure kicks off with a pummeling energy on the title track, showcasing Flea's slap bass technique and Frusciante's rollicking guitar layers that work beautifully in tandem with Anthony Kiedis' yearning for connection, illustrating the bittersweet nature of humanity. Songs like Dosed capture this duality straight to warm tape, balancing heartfelt melodies with oceanic instrumentation and more direct observational writing. This pull is felt on the breezy Universally Speaking, the Spanish outlier Cabron, which is definitely a weird one that I love, and the touching closer Venice Queen that was dedicated to a late friend. If you're hoping to see the Red Hot Chili Peppers' softer side, this is it, as the consistently mellow groove gets me floating up like a Macy's Day Parade, keeping the essence of the quartet strong while hand-delivering a fresh wave of artistic growth. Weaponizing pop just to make it your bitch? A bold but obviously correct 3D chess move from Mag Bay, since I'm assuming they have the mind of Anya Taylor-Joy in The Queen's Gambit. This proggy synth-pop duo always goes the extra mile to give us a compelling story in tandem with their avant-garde instrumentation. It's not that they weren't pitch perfect already on their previous releases, but Imaginal Disc showed up and swallowed their past whole. With tracks like the swoon-worthy Cry For Me and psychedelic banger Tunnel Vision leading this pop revolution, we're guided through a rebirthing of mind, body, and soul as light emerges out from under every track, bursting with life like a dam that's been sealed tight for years. The songs flow organically and seductively, hardwired for self-soothing as Mika Tenenbaum's angelic voice belts out like the icy rings of Saturn over lush, sexy production and some major improvements in drumming. For me, it's the recurring synchronicities that prove how much work went into making this a full album experience that never relents even for a second. My 13-year-old self was so sheltered, but thank God for friends with good taste in music that recommended a band that lit up my musical rebellious neurons like nothing else I had ever heard. After hearing and loving all three of its singles on the radio, this 2001 album became pure controlled chaos with an aggressive blending of nu metal, non-stop twists, and freakish hooks, making it impossible to ignore, which is exactly what they want. They want your attention hooked by the outlandishness, so you hear the underlying political themes mixed in with struggles of mental health and social injustice. There was nothing else like this, making it incredibly effective with a lasting appeal that still sends shivers down my spine as Serge and Darren align their voices in perfect harmony, flying high off of the flaming drum-guitar combo to give themselves a full view of the planet they seemingly love and despise. Humanity has fucked our planet up beyond recognition, but some still don't want to hear the science? Yeah, that tracks. Also, Toxicity was way ahead of its time, releasing literally 1 week before 9/11 and holding up disturbingly well when you take a magnifying glass to the lyrics. Had to be careful when choosing Daft Punk's placement, since for some reason, it feels like I'm handling precious artifacts when speaking of the robot duo that once were. They evolved beyond the simpler techno music of Homework as Discovery launched with French House at the wheel and electro-funk as co-pilot, skyrocketing through space and time for the entire voyage most of us would have never returned home from. Impactful new disco elements complement the funkier arrangements as sublime synth tones crank the vibes all the way to 11, birthing some of their best and most iconic songs, from One More Time to Voyager, Short Circuit, and one of the greatest songs ever recorded, Digital Love. Forever the under-respected outcast, Folie à Deux rose above the negativity circle jerk by standing tall over time, like a god-tier Stonehenge for emos. As soulful as it is hard-rocking, Foley completely tore Fall Out Boy away from pop-punk in the most wonderfully executed over-the-top fashion, keeping the earworms intact while adding everything from rappers to string sections, insane vocal runs, screamo, theatricality, and monumental guitar soloing from Joe Troman. I got the CD for my 17th birthday. Ironically, it came out on December 16th, which was my last day of being 16, and now, well, past being on the bad side of 25, I love the album more than I ever could have in 2008. Foley is a depressing but buoyant album that deserves to be remembered as a classic. Every band member is on fire, as it's easily their most creative effort, dominating with a series of tracks that rain down misery like a rain cloud over the dance floor. Run away or run into the pain? That was a tough decision facing Josh Homme following an extended break after his band's divisive album Era Vulgaris. Recording for a new album was again a very collaborative process, with everyone from Queen's family mainstays Dave Grohl, Nick Oliveri, and Mark Lanigan joining, to also Trent Reznor, Alex Turner, and Elton John getting involved alongside the core band. The result is a haunting, moody masterpiece that blends the band's desert rock sensibilities with a morbid, unnerving feeling of vulnerability. Like Clockwork gets dastardly dark, yet remains accessible compositionally, as Josh Homme's signature falsetto brings that extra emotional grit to tracks like I Appear Missing and The Vampire of Time and Memory. Extraordinary production marries the driving riffs and ghostly pianos to Josh's midlife spiral, balancing that internal agony with unrelenting grit, proving Queens of the Stone Age can evolve while keeping their raw edge. What do you expect me to come in and say about Abbey Road that hasn't already been said a million times? I know, I wanted to go with a different Beatles record initially just to not be that guy, but my sweet lord, if this isn't a band on top of the world artistically, what is? Here Comes the Sun might be my first song ever, like the first one that I remember, thanks to my mom singing it to me all the time when I was little. I've told her this many times, but I'll say it again. Her love for the Beatles and for music, albeit usually something more of the classical variety, it's what helped me to fall in love with music, and that's gonna remain with me until the day I die. The Fab Four's final recorded album is their absolute best, seamlessly blending their signature styles with fresh boundary-pushing production that packs in heavenly harmonies, unforgettable melodies, and moments that range from sentimental reflection to avant-garde rocking. While both halves are loaded with must-hears, the iconic medley in the back half is an endless well of magic that ties everything together in a way that only the Beatles could. Imagine your worst moment, then amplify it like a throbbing migraine for the soul as you descend down a blackened staircase that will lead you to either door number 1, escape and recovery, or door number 2, drugs, despair, the end. The downward spiral became a lighthouse for those weathering the most intense personal storms, as Trent Reznor allowed the unfiltered ramblings of a fractured mind to flow through a vast sea of industrial beats, snarling riffage, and unnerving soundscapes that do their best to make make you feel insane. Brutal honesty could have turned into excess whining in the hands of the wrong sorcerer. Thankfully, Reznor molded his spite into a pile of madness that actually kind of plays out like a horror film, with our protagonist surviving the hurt just to get closer to a warm place where heresy self-destructs. Wait, before we get to the top 10, take a quick second to like the video if you're enjoying it, and make sure you're subscribed to both of my channels, ARTV and Beyond ARTV. I'm posting long-form scripted content here on ARTV going forward, so the other co-main channel will be a range of unscripted entertainment and music content, including news commentary, reviews, think tanks, tier list, reactions, vinyl collecting, exploring eras, and so much more, so go subscribe to Beyond ARTV, and now, enjoy the top 10.
Better off when I hit the bottom.
Thinking back on how this album came out the exact same day I started this channel, September 29th, 2009, I'm remembering how much of a non-coincidence that actually was. Their third album is the sound of anything but settling, as the House of Paramore became loudly fractured among 5 members who channeled all their rage and mistrust into a career-defining lightning rod called Brand New Eyes. Vocalist Hayley Williams gets downright vicious with her often sarcastic wordplay, riding off the furious drumming of Zach Farrow, who, along with his older brother Josh on guitar, made this album a top-to-bottom oasis away from the band's melodrama. The hard-hitting alternative rock groove was a major step up in musical maturity, production, and songwriting, as every song is laced with just enough pop magic to keep this album in constant rotation every single year, no matter how much new music is out there.
Listen, Master, can you answer a question?
Jack and Meg White will forever be one of music's most iconic duos. Ones you'd likely associate with their magnum opus Elephant, which is definitely my favorite too, although I love all of the White Stripes albums. It's just good for the soul. The Stripes released Elephant on April Fool's Day 2003, but the wide-ranging tracklist is no joke, packing heavyweights like Paul and Biscuit, Black Math, Hypnotize, and future stadium anthem Seven Nation Army. Swaggering blues riffage absolutely crushes in the album's loudest moments, as Meg nonchalantly bashes out beats like there's no tomorrow or no home for you here. Delicate moments flourish through the midsection, providing an uncomfortable but much-needed hush with a level of intimacy that draws your ear with the warmth of the recording. This is peak Jack White on all fronts, putting his vocal range through the ringer from deeply chaotic to restrained, angry, and thoughtful as he matches the various moods to his Peppermint Ink. I was the resident Radiohead hater for years, but thank God my life changed with the release of A Moon-Shaped Pool in 2016, which led me to give them a proper try and subsequently fall in love with their discography. As a group, they truly went the extra mile to rupture fan expectations, becoming a masterpiece in no man's land, swimming in the sound of something so much bigger than just personal introspection. OK Computer's artistic blueprint has a breath of timelessness pushed into the mouth of the machine that keeps things from floating away, starting with the guitar whiplash punch of Airbag. Whether you're lost on the sonic highways of subterranean homesick alien, feeling the chills run down your spine as Lucky rings out its chorus, or just enjoying the imaginary film of a lifetime as your ears are treated to the legendary exit music for a film, this album demands your full attention at every turn.
But I'll be here 'cause you're all that I got.
Imagine being in a situation where within a few years you go from no label wanting to sign you to biggest band in the world. LP2 launched a record-setting 5 #1 alternative singles from the same album, a record that's unlikely to ever be matched, but even beyond its hits like the heart-wrenching Numb or the chest-pounding Rager Faint, I gotta say the deep cuts are a gold mine. Creative uses of Joe Hahn's turntables are in the DNA of Linkin Park, period, but I'd argue it was never put to better use than on Meteora. Every member shines, as does the production and instrumentation, so don't let the perceived simplicity fool you into thinking this album is shallow. This album saved me as a teenager in the 2000s. It feels so strange to look back on it that way, being where I am now, but Chester Bennington was a hero of mine, I'll say it. and so many of his lyrics in moments of genuine anger that I felt through those powerhouse vocals. I get choked up thinking about that time and going to that place in my mind, and I'm just grateful that I got to tell Chester in person how much that meant to me.
Canals and alleyways, just to say, money trees is the perfect place for shade, and that's just how I feel.
West Coast hip-hop got a major boost with the rise of Compton rapper Kendrick Lamar in the early 2010s. GOAT status was achieved quickly, with his major label breakthrough Good Kid, Mad City standing as my favorite rap album ever. The rhyme schemes, beat selection, and sampling are unbelievably well done, with that Beach House Silver Soul sample on Money Trees still blowing my mind. Lyrical rap shares the space with this kind of youthful naivety that fools you into thinking that, hey, I'm never gonna be the one on the receiving end of a bullet. Rowdy tracks like Mad City hit like an anvil of adrenaline, flexing Kendrick's prowess with the kind of octane you'd expect from a gasoline explosion, and that's not the only banger here. Swimming pools, Money Trees, Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe, the hits are stone cold classics, and the deep cuts are often the more painful reflections on growing up surrounded by violence, lust, and generational trauma. K-Dot chronicles his corruption in real time, as this album plays out like a full-blown coming-of-age tale from the mind of a young artist that masterfully wrote and wove this overarching narrative together.
You can only blame yourself, it's what I say.
Growing up emo eventually means outgrowing emo. Sometimes, depending on who you are, maybe. Yet the older I get, the more emotionally in tune I feel with brand new. Science fiction was this close to dethroning a classic, but I had to go with The Devil and God due to its borderline unhinged religious trauma bond and the creative firepower held by the band's always gloomy, never boring disposition. Driving even further away from their pop-punk roots was a risky move that paid off tenfold, as they openly swam in black pools of anguish on devastating songs like Limousine. To put it succinctly, this is a tailor-made fall record that's chilling, full of deep musings on life, death, God, and love, as brand new pull off this quiet, loud atmosphere that always keeps the listener guessing for when the next guitar outburst or vocal meltdown might come.
Join us if you think you're wild. You can join us if you figure out child. Our love is cool.
I've always had an affinity towards UK music, but Wolf Alice hits like a great awakening, ushering in another British invasion for my taste in music specifically. My Love Is Cool plays like an alternative rock fortress in the eye of an internal storm, anchored by frontwoman Ellie Roselle, who I think is easily among the greatest vocalists of our lifetime, thanks to her range, command, and emotionally charged poetic musings. It's her bandmates never fading into the background that makes this so special though, with all four members shining throughout, with the quiet, loud dynamic going crazy with this blend of grungy shoegaze and alternative rock that feels anything but amateur for a debut. Wolf Alice celebrates the unpredictability of youth, not with total reckless abandon, but by providing a space where hopes, fears, dreams, and existential doom can coexist under one massive umbrella. Rumors lands on nearly every best album list for a reason, because music does not get better than this. Despite a healthy helping of inner turmoil, Fleetwood Mac set aside their egos to create a timeless, bulletproof masterpiece. The arrival of Buckingham Nicks redefined the band's sound, replacing folk influences with soaring soft rock melodies. Each of the three vocalists unlocks a raw honesty that's helped set the blueprint for songwriting ever since. No better marriage of pop and rock has ever been recorded, even if it came at the cost of the band's personal chaos. Christine McVie shines, commanding the funky groove of You Make Loving Fun and pouring her heart into the unforgettable Songbird. Lindsey Buckingham's signature style takes off with Secondhand News, with his unique vocal timbre and phenomenal guitar work elevating the album every bit as much as Mick's polished drumming or Stevie's unmistakable Siren song. The Black Parade isn't just the pinnacle of 2000's scene, kid. It's an album that redefined rock operas, and on a smaller scale, who I am, not just as a teen, but also as an elder emo. My Chemical Romance took a massive swing making this theatrical concept album, blending punk, emo, and Queen-inspired classic rock to create this relentless onslaught of bloodthirsty energy. Gerard Way's hauntingly passionate performance leads us through a narrative of death, legacy, and finding symbolic beauty through pain. Tracks like The Sharpest Lives and Famous Last Words are biting anthems screaming with life, offering catharsis to anyone willing to keep on living. Deeper cuts like Sleep show the band's ability to balance grandiosity with nightmarish vulnerability, sinking into the void, while other great tracks like Dead get loud and existential, balanced later by the terrifying Mama with Liza Minnelli and the jaded belter Disenchanted. It was never a phase. The Black Parade is in my DNA, and trust me when I tell you, it's a razor-thin margin keeping this from number 1. The gargantuan shadow of American Idiot looms large alongside Meteora as one of the first 2 albums that I ever fell in love with, something that jump-started my love for music some 20 years ago, one fateful day out skating with friends. In hindsight, what I respect most about this era is how far Green Day pushed themselves beyond punk. It was a big gamble to leap from punk to this gargantuan Who-inspired rock opera, but the results are undeniably great for this politically charged concept album that defined a generation. The storyline masterfully unveils a coming-of-age journey, as tracks like Jesus of Suburbia feel like entire worlds on their own, as does Homecoming, as they're given proper time to channel the chaos, disillusionment, and rebellion into something unforgettable. I'm drawn to these kinds of confrontational albums, and American Idiot became confrontational by tackling post-9/11 America and accurately framed the fear and frustration that so many of us were left feeling. The heightened emotion in songs like Boulevard of Broken Dreams and What's Her Name never failed to whisk me away to their world, as Green Day somehow managed to channel anger, sadness, and hope all in one project. American Idiot is a career-defining record that took ambition combined with Green Day's flawless execution and remains a masterpiece in punk and rock history. That's a wrap on my top 100 albums of all time. This video took a long time to make, so please annihilate the like button, help me get this to 5,000 likes, subscribe for the love of music, drop a comment with your favorite album or your thoughts on my picks, and a huge thank you for 15 years of ARTV.